All right, well, after taking the Rugby League world by storm in 2023, the Warriors had a very sobering year in 2024. Let's find out why in the 2024 season review for the New Zealand Warriors. And to break this all down for me, Zero Tackle expert analyst Darren Parkin. And Darren, they really lost all that excitement from 2023 this year in 2024.
Yeah, they did. Obviously, there's an element of teams doing a bit more homework. They were a surprise packet the year before, but certainly a lot of stuff happened internally. Shocking run of injuries, lost the ability to score on most parts. Some of what they were doing held up okay. They were the best defensive team of all non-finalists, which is obviously something to hang their hat on if you use defence as a cornerstone of building from there. But that attacking flair and some of that excitement really did dissipate. They went from being ranked the 7th offensive side to 11th. They were the 3rd best defence in their run to the top 4 in 2023, 9th best defence this year, and as we said, best of the non-finalists. So it's not an absolute write-off, but it would have been really, really hard work for Warriors fans given the excitement levels coming in.
Yep, absolutely. So let's look ahead to the 2024 pass mark. All right, Darren, so if you were a Warriors fan at the start of 2024, you'd probably be thinking that they would make top 4 again or maybe even dream a bit bigger.
Yeah, I mean, their defensive profile are ranked 3rd in defence, and they were getting better in that space as well. They were relatively young, so the perception was that they would be extremely difficult to beat. Obviously, their home record is impressive. It's a tough place to go. You think they'd protect the fortress pretty well on that side of the ditch, but it just wasn't to be for them. If you look at the breakdowns of it, and it all came down to that attacking flair. I mean, 146 line breaks last year, only 109 this season, minus 37 in that space. Went from 4.1 tries a game to 3.7, 23.3 points per game down to 22. That might not look like much, but if you average it out over the course of a season, it's pretty big. I mean, they made similar amounts of errors, so that wasn't too bad. They missed less tackles. Defensively, they were okay, with the exception of a couple of absolute beltings that they copped in the middle of the year. But the belief was certainly, I would think, that finals, probably top 4, hosting finals and challenging.
Yeah, so I think it's safe to say they did not reach the pass mark in 2024. Let's dive a bit deeper into the lowlights. All right, so some pretty obvious lowlights for the Warriors this year. Let's start with the injuries.
Yeah, I mean, we measure the Warriors probably against the Broncos as which side was the biggest underachiever on the season. The Broncos were 6 minutes away from winning the flag, and then obviously the Warriors were not too far away from playing in the grand final, and they both ended up missing the 8 quite convincingly in the end. So, I mean, the Johnson era comes to an end. His try assists dropped away from 32 to 16, so that's exactly half. They lost 8 of their last 11, which I think was largely to do with that build-up of injuries and fatigue impacting the group. Their players missed 140 games due to injury, which was ranked 2nd for any side in the competition. So the biggest struggle was getting the same 17 players on the park. It was very rare that they were unchanged. Roger Tuivasa-Sheck scored just 5 times in 18 games. His return to the club was very much underwhelming. They've got to figure out how they want to use him. That's another significant part in that. But probably the part where you knew their season was in big trouble was when they went to Queensland and gave up 66 points against a Gold Coast team that was really labouring at the time. The Warriors were still in that finals mix at that stage, but that was a pretty, use the word sobering earlier, but that was the loss that underlined that they had some problems.
Yeah, absolutely damning scoreline in that game. All right, so look, doesn't look great at the moment, so let's move over to the highlights. All right, so in a pretty sobering year, as you've mentioned, there was a really nice highlight with Sean Johnson's retirement game.
Yeah, it was. I mean, against his former side, Cronulla. I mean, there are some fairy tales that work. There are some that unfortunately don't happen, but this was one that kind of did. Obviously, the Bulldogs would go on to spoil the ultimate farewell. But they were down 22-4 at halftime against Cronulla, and then he wound the clock back. We spoke about how his numbers had dropped away this year, but superb second half. They ended up winning the game in the last second. He had a hand in that try, which got them over the line. 176 running metres for the game, 3 try assists, 2 line breaks, 503 kicking metres. It saw him effectively go out on his terms rather than, slowly fading out in a bit part role. So for him to play a major part in beating a top 4 side was a really pleasing result in a disappointing year. They also beat Penrith in Magic Round way back earlier in the year. So I think a couple of those results to beat Cronulla and Penrith, who both finished top 4, shows that there's something there if it all clicks.
Yeah, absolutely. Not all doom and gloom. So let's take a look now at the most improved for 2024. All right, so for our most improved, this usually skews a bit younger, but we've gone with 30-year-old Mitchell Barnett.
Yeah, look, a career best year is a career best year, so he certainly did improve. He got a call up into the New South Wales Origin team, so he made significant breakthroughs in his career, averaging 149 running metres a game. That was miles above his average output in the previous 10 seasons he'd spent in the game. Also a career high 94% completion rate on tackles, so it's really hard to make a case for many of his teammates having improved. There were some that held ground and quite a few that went backwards, but he was definitely a player that produced the best output of his career. And I guess it doesn't matter if you're 20 or 46. If you play your best season, you play your best season.
Absolutely. All right, let's move over to the headlines. Well, there's one thing we know at Zero Tackle, it's headlines and rumours. So probably the big one for the Warriors this year was that supposed rift with Aden Fanau-Blake.
Yeah, we spoke about it a little bit with the Titans, where sometimes you can keep this stuff in-house and sometimes you can't. And when sides are struggling, people, media, us, fans, everybody start just digging around a little bit, thinking, is there anything in that? What's going on here? Are these conversations legitimate? I mean, if you're 6-1 at the start of the season, they're like, oh, well, they've got all that in-house. They're handling it, good leadership, everything's fine. But when it's not happening, that's when you start to notice these things a little bit more. And there's no doubt it was a distraction. You're getting asked about it a lot. And there's probably an element of truth to it. It's a scenario that I would suggest would exist in nearly every club in the comp.
Yeah.
But it just stands out when you're when people are looking for reasons why you're struggling, and that was certainly a factor.
Yeah, absolutely. Now let's take a look at 2025 and the pass mark. All right, so 2025, would you be looking to get back straight away to that 2023 form?
Yeah, I mean, we try to be realistic, but positive, I guess, when looking at these reviews. And 9.5 wins on the season with wins over Penrith and Cronulla. They lost 7 times by less than 6 points, so they were competitive most weeks. They had the second worst injury list in the competition. Their coach, Andrew Webster, didn't get much of a chance to look at the same squad all the time. They bring in Fisher Harris, who should add a fair bit more potency to their forward pack. Defensively, they're quite sound. So I think they're, to my mind anyway, probably the most capable side from outside the 8 to make some sort of an inroad. So I don't see any reason why they won't improve. And I think as a basis point, they'd want to finish top 6 and then see what happens from there. But yeah, if you look at excuses versus reasons, they had a lot of reasons last year, and there's nothing to suggest those reasons should inhibit them in 2025. So I'd be using finals as a base.
Yep, absolutely. I like that. Top 6, up the wires. All right, well, that wraps it up for the 2024 season review for the Wars. Thank you, Darren.
No worries. Another fascinating side for next year.
Absolutely. So let us know in the comments if you think the Warriors are going to push back in 2025 and reclaim that 2023 form. Remember to like and subscribe, and we'll be doing reviews for every team in 2024. We'll also be looking ahead to 2026 and who your team should be targeting contract-wise come November 1. So like, subscribe, and catch all the latest NRL news at zerotackle.com.